here to discuss those issues, and we have guests from HPD. And I am going to, before I turn it over to Elizabeth, I'm Anthony Cohn. My co-chairs Elizabeth Ashby and Ed Hartzog are here with me, of course. And I'm going to turn this over to Ian to go through the rules of Zoom.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Welcome to our friends from HPD as well. If this is your first time joining us, you'll notice that you are currently muted, and everyone will remain muted throughout the meeting, except committee co-chairs and any presenters as we move through the agenda. Following the presentations, and as we move through the agenda, the co-chairs will call on members of the public wishing to speak. You can participate by pressing the raise hand button at the bottom of your screen, not the wave or thumbs up button. Those will disappear. Only press it once. If you press it a second time, your hand will go back down. If you are calling in on a phone, it's *9 to raise your hand and *6 to unmute. Be on the lookout for a prompt asking you to confirm unmuting once the co-chairs call on you. The chat is available for technical support only to help with Zoom software problems, not to ask questions of the co-chairs. They will not see the chats. If you're using an older version of Zoom, you may need to find the React menu, Participants menu, or the button that says More, where you will find the Raise Hand feature. If you plan to speak during the meeting, it would be helpful if you could rename your device with your full first and last name. Please don't raise your actual hand or wave at the screen instead of using the Zoom raise hand function, because we may not be able to see you. If you have any questions, chat me. I'm here for support. Thanks very much. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. Elizabeth, why don't you introduce our guests and take over item 1.
Okay. Well, we welcome HPD, certainly, and Joy Resor, who has been extremely helpful, and I hear that she's here, and I turn it over to them to make their presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And thank you all for having us back tonight to the committee. As a reminder, I'm Joy Reeser. I'm Director of Manhattan Planning at HPD, and my team is responsible for taking 100% affordable housing developments on public sites through the necessary land use approvals process. So last month, I know we were really focused on J51, so we're excited to come back and speak to you more broadly about affordable housing and the range of housing resources that the agency has at our disposal. We will try to answer all of your questions as best as we can, but we might need to follow up on a few. But I've brought some experts with me to try and help answer some of those questions. So we have Miranda Alperstein, Fair Housing Planner, who's going to co-present tonight. Melanie Rodrigo, who's a borough planner on my team, who will also co-present, and Robel Techleib, so sorry, Robel, who is with our tenant engagement and special projects team. He's really our expert on housing resources and can speak to a pretty wide range of those. And we'll also have Sarit Platkin on the line later. She's the Executive Director of Neighborhood Planning and Equity Initiatives, which is the team that Miranda works on. So that's all of us. I will hand it over to Miranda and Melanie to take us through.
Thanks so much, Joy. So I just shared my screen. Again, my name is Miranda. I'm a fair housing planner here in the Office of Neighborhood Strategies at HPD. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what HPD does as an agency, frame for you all how we as an agency think about New York City's affordable housing crises, and explain how we're working to address those problems. And at the end, we'll talk a little bit about some resources that are available to New Yorkers and members of your community. So first, let's talk a little bit about what New York City Housing Preservation and Development, or HPD, does. Firstly, HPD ensures housing quality by enforcing the city's maintenance code. In 2024 alone, our hundreds of housing inspectors conducted 784,000 inspections and issued 895,000 violations. Second, in exchange for maintaining affordability of homes, HPD provides financing and incentives for owners of older buildings with affordable units and HPD also finances the new construction of homes on public and private land. Lastly, HPD partners with communities on comprehensive planning with the aim of stabilizing and strengthening neighborhoods to ensure they are diverse and livable. So in order to understand why HPD focuses on the programs that we do, it's helpful to know how we think about New York City's overlapping housing crises. We've broken down what is a very complex topic into 4 key housing problems facing our city. Firstly, as I'm sure you're all aware, housing costs are too high for most New Yorkers. Nearly a third of New York renter households spend over half of their income on rent. And as you all know, the more you pay on rent, the less money you have left over for other essential needs like food, childcare, medical expenses, etc. Secondly, there aren't enough available homes for all the people who want to live in this city. Currently, the citywide vacancy rate is 1.4%, which is the lowest it's been since the 60s. And while it might seem like a lot of development is going on, the city's housing production has simply not kept pace with population growth. This is due to a variety of factors like rising construction costs, limited vacant land, zoning restrictions, and opposition to new housing. The resulting environment gives owners power to raise rents and engage in illegal activity, including tenant harassment and discrimination. Thirdly, it's expensive to maintain quality housing, and tens of thousands of New Yorkers can't afford rents that just cover maintenance costs. And finally, many New Yorkers face limited choice when choosing what neighborhood to live in. This can be the result of affordability, but too often it's also due to discrimination. We can see the effects of our city's persistent patterns of racial segregation. For example, recent construction of new housing and affordable housing is concentrated in a few neighborhoods, often historically disinvested areas, while many whiter and more affluent neighborhoods have seen little to no new housing in decades. And we have a couple maps showing both new construction generally and affordable housing construction. We can get the sense from looking at this map that of the 50,000 new affordable homes built since 2014, most of the city's neighborhoods make up an insignificant part of that count. And and in the places where we're building affordable housing, they tend to have a large supply of the city's low-cost housing already, instead of low-cost housing enabling people to have a foothold in lower affordability neighborhoods. And the consequences of these housing crises are all around us. A lack of quality, affordable housing pushes New Yorkers out of their homes and into homelessness, the worst case scenario. Many people reside in aging and poorly maintained housing. Some households increase their size to accommodate increasing costs, resulting in overcrowding. And many households are rent burdened, spending more on housing to stay where they are. And now I'll pass it to Melanie, who's going to talk a little bit about how these issues show up in Community District 8.
Great. Thanks, Miranda. Hello, everyone. My name is Melanie Rodrigo. I'm a borough planner for the Manhattan Planning Team. So as Miranda noted earlier, that the housing costs in New York City are too high. And so focusing on Community District 8, we'll take a closer look at how the current housing costs affect a typical 3-person family entering the New York rental market and searching for a 2-bedroom apartment. So the median household income in Community District 8 is about $152,000 annually, or roughly $12,700 per month, which is shown in dark blue on the left. However, it's important to note that not all New Yorkers in Community District 8 earn that district's median household income, which a typical New York City minimum wage household earns around $70,000 annually. It's also important to note that it is recommended that the maximum spending on housing is 30% of a household's income, which is a widely used benchmark for housing affordability. And so, on your right, when comparing the households, we see that while the average District 8 family pays within the 30% spending benchmark, versus the average New York City family spends half of their income on rent. And so without a subsidy of some kind, this family is likely to be severely rent burdened, as rent alone takes up half of their income, again, shown on the bar on your right. And so it just leaves very little flexibility to cover all the other essential needs. So next slide. So building on to rent burden, about 42% of Community District 8 renters are rent burden, meaning renters are paying at least 30% of their income on rent. And roughly half of those households are severely rent burdened, meaning renters are spending over 50% of their income on rent. So on your right, you can see that while Community District 8 has a higher percentage of renters who are not rent burdened compared to the borough and citywide. However, it's nearly half of the renters in Community District 8 are still experiencing affordability pressures. And so this just highlights that, high rents, not just low incomes, are driving housing instability, even in higher income neighborhoods. So, in addition to the housing costs being too high, another problem, our housing problem, is closely connected to the real cost of maintaining safe, quality housing, particularly in District 8, where much of the housing stock dates back to the early 1900s and requires ongoing costly maintenance. So in New York City, the minimum cost to operate and maintain an apartment is around $12,000 per month. And as mentioned, older buildings are more expensive to maintain. It requires more frequent and costly repairs, which can significantly increase expenses over time. So at the same time, many renters who are rent burdened cannot afford rents high enough to cover these maintenance costs without pushing them into severe rent burden. So government subsidy is needed to fill this gap and prevent severe rent burden, homelessness, and unsafe housing. And so specifically in District 8, an underlying housing problem, as Miranda mentioned, is that there aren't enough available homes, specifically the supply, where the housing production has not kept up with the population growth. And so you see from 2010 to 2024, District 8 saw population grow by 6%, while housing increased by only 1%. So it creating a significant mismatch between demand and supply. So this gap is larger than in Manhattan overall and New York City as a whole, where the housing growth is mostly tracked the population growth. So just as a result, more residents are competing for nearly the same number of homes in Community District 8. So this imbalance puts upward pressure on rents, increases overcrowding, and makes it harder for longtime residents to remain in the neighborhood. And you can go to the next slide.
Oh, I think
Oh,
Miranda's
and Miranda's,
muted.
yeah.
If you could unmute her. Thank you.
Sorry, I learned my lesson. I won't unmute myself again. So thank you, Melanie. And I know these are really complex issues and hard issues to solve. So what are we doing? What is HPD doing and the city to address these crises? Firstly, we want to help people stay in their homes. So HPD works to support tenants through a variety of programs and policies for tenants to make sure that they know their rights and can access legal support and rental assistance. We also want to help homeowners stay and keep their homes, and we offer a variety of programs to help homeowners facing instability, scams, or facing disrepair in their homes. These programs reduce the costs of homeownership and connect owners to critical information and services. Another critical tool the city uses to tackle the housing crisis is to build new affordable housing. HPD finances the construction of new 100% affordable housing on both public and private property. On public sites, HPD engages with community members to define a vision for the site and then issues a request for proposals to developers who will build. If a private property owner is interested in building affordable housing, they can approach HPD for financing. HPD also facilitates privately financed affordable housing through zoning and tax incentives, things like mandatory inclusionary housing, which we'll get into in just a minute. And it's important to note that while we're proud of the role we play in helping produce tens of thousands of units every year, it's important to know that most new housing development occurs entirely without HPD involvement. So just to talk a little bit more about new construction and financing new development, our financing programs for the construction of new affordable homes can serve a diversity of populations. Some of our developments serve households with a range of incomes. Some are reserved for seniors. Some serve people who need supportive services, such as people currently living in shelter or youth aging out of foster care, domestic abuse survivors, and more. And we also finance new income-restricted homeownership opportunities for New Yorkers. We also want to talk about some of the zoning incentives that facilitate the creation of permanently affordable housing, specifically through the mandatory inclusionary housing program and the universal affordability preference. Both of these programs create permanently affordable income-restricted units that are distributed through the affordable housing lottery. But they're a little bit different. MIH, or mandatory inclusionary housing, applies in specific areas that are rezoned to allow a significant increase in residential density. And within these areas, 20 to 30% of the new homes must be permanently affordable. This is a mandatory program, which is a little bit different from UAP, which is an optional program that allows buildings in all medium and high density districts outside of MIH areas to add at least 20% more housing if the additional homes are permanently affordable to households earning an average of 60% of the area median income. And both provide a mechanism to create permanently affordable housing. You can see a little example here of like what UAP would allow in a medium to high density district. The last tool we want to talk about is preserving affordable housing, which means investing in existing buildings in exchange for long-term affordability. Since 2014, 174,000 homes have renewed affordability commitments through HPD's preservation financing programs. This is a big part of the work that we do. These programs include a variety of tools, including low-interest loans, subsidies for rehabilitation and operation, helping nonprofits acquire buildings, and offering homeowner repair loans and other programs. And our preservation projects are targeting the lowest incomes in the city. Half of the preserved homes since 2014 were affordable to households making less than 50% of the area median income. So those are sort of the high-level strategies we use to tackle housing affordability issues in our city. But what do we say when we mean what do we mean when we say affordable housing? We categorize affordable housing into 4 types. The first is public housing. In New York City, these are homes managed by NYCHA. There's also rental subsidy or housing vouchers, which you've probably heard of, Section 8 vouchers or City FEPS vouchers. The third type is government administered, which is a broad category of housing types where government is involved in financing or regulating the housing in some way. This category includes buildings that HPD finances or buildings that have to comply with MIH, which I just discussed. And these homes are generally rent stabilized. The last category is buildings that were built before 1974 that are rent stabilized, based solely on their age and size. So why do we consider these types of housing affordable? Because they're all governed by a tool that makes or keeps the housing affordable in some way. There are three tools that can be part of affordability protections. The first is income restriction, which is an income-based eligibility that is designed to ensure that affordable units go to the households that need them. The second tool is rent stabilization. I'm sure you're all familiar with these regulations that are designed to protect tenants from sudden increases in rent. The last is rent burden protection, which is a tool that is part of public housing and rental vouchers, which is the only tool that allows a tenant to pay less rent if their income decreases. Of the four types of affordable housing, HPD plays a direct role in government administered housing, of course, and rental vouchers because we administer Section 8 vouchers. HPD, along with NYCHA, administers Section 8 vouchers, but not other types of vouchers. So that's sort of our broad view of affordable housing and the role that HPD plays in creating and administering affordable housing. And we wanted to highlight just a few of the many housing resources available to New Yorkers. The first thing we'd like to highlight is a specific program called Partners in Preservation. PIP is a program that provides funding to community-based organizations to help combat displacement through tenant organizing and helping tenants learn their rights. This program allows tenants to take collective action to hold landlords accountable and protect their rights to a safe and comfortable home. This program, it's relatively new and an expanded pilot program that has since its expansion led to the creation of over 70 tenant associations. It's now active in 39 community districts. It was recently expanded to Manhattan Community District 8, where we've partnered with Tenants and Neighbors for New York and Citizens Action. We also wanted to highlight a few of the programs we offer to support homeowners. The first is the Homeowner Help Desk, which is a one-stop shop that offers homeowner support and legal counseling, foreclosure prevention, and deed theft, as well as a variety of other resources. There's also Home Fix, which offers low or no interest loans to eligible owners of 1 to 4 unit buildings in need of repairs. And we also work to educate homeowners through a variety of tools, such as the Homeowner Handbook, a comprehensive guide to help New York homeowners navigate the responsibilities of homeownership and access resources. There are many other resources to help New Yorkers facing a variety of housing issues. New Yorkers facing housing instability can turn to Homebase for assistance with one-shot deals to help with rental arrears, as well as City FEPS vouchers. The Tenant Support Unit can assist with City FEPS applications as well, and it also administers a tenant helpline to help connect tenants to resources that they may need. HPD also operates a hotline and general email account to help direct people with housing issues to the right HPD program. We also partner with communities to host resource fairs that offer direct support to tenants and homeowners. And there are a lot of other housing resources out there. The New York City Housing Resource Portal is an online repository to help New Yorkers locate the help that they need. So this is the end of our presentation, and we're really looking forward to getting into some of the questions that you all have. I see some hands raised already. And I'll stop sharing my screen.
Well, thank you very much indeed for all that information. And first, are there any members of the public with their paws up in the air?
I don't
I
see.
see someone from Friends of the Upper East Side.
Oh, okay, great. Where'd she go? Oh, yeah.
Good evening. My name is Zainab Turan, and I'm not speaking on behalf of Friends of the Upper East Side. Sorry, I was testifying all day today. I do have a question about the affordable housing certificates program that you have. And once a developer commits to buying these certificates, how are they realized? Where do we see them? Is it based on affordable housing units or square feet? We would like to get some more information about that, if you don't mind. Thank you.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm the best person to answer this. I'd be curious to understand what you mean by certificates. Are you talking about vouchers or
Yeah.
vouchers? How is it decided that landlords would get vouchers? Is the question.
No, let me give you an example. So recently, I testified on a project. A developer wants to, let's say, knock down a building that has rent stabilized and has had rent stabilized units. So in return, they commit to buying, let's say, $7 million worth of affordable housing certificates. So I would like to know how that works.
I don't know if other folks on my team, either Suri or Robella, know more about this, but we can certainly look into it if we don't know the answer. Oh, okay.
Sure. So I can fill in the gaps a little bit. I think what you might be talking about is the certificate of no harassment, which is a requirement. Okay, I'm seeing a no.
Oh, I think Suri just got muted. If you wouldn't mind unmuting.
Sorry, I won't unmute myself. Okay, so you're not talking about the certificate of no harassment. Okay. I think we might need a little more information then as to what you're referring to, because this isn't terminology that we usually use. I'm sure there's an easy way for us to understand this. It's just maybe being described in a slightly different way than we usually do. I think what you're describing, it sounds like potentially, is this an area where there was an upzoning? No. Okay. Then yeah, maybe we can follow up one-on-one and try and get you more information.
Okay. Any other members of the public? Okay, we'll go to the board. Who's the first board member, Ian?
We have Alita up first.
Okay.
Alita, you are on the air.
Thank you. And thank you for your presentation. It's very refreshing to hear how interested the city is in affordable housing, because not one affordable unit is required by the city of Yes. And as we've seen, a developer with a building on Fifth Avenue is using the city of Yes to give himself 25 additional height for a luxury penthouse apartment. And that has reflected his desire to tear down that building and put up another building with fewer units than what he is tearing down. Maybe luxury, but it reflects what's going on to a degree in this community. I feel like we are living in parallel universes, because CB8, the district or Community District 8, seems to function differently than many other areas in the city. We don't have a height requirement on a lot of the avenues. So what happens is the developers assemble parcels of land, including the demolition of walk-ups. They put up buildings, sometimes with fewer units than what they tear down, but invariably with zero affordable housing units. So what we're getting is enormous density and the destruction of affordable units to the tune of, I think, somewhere around 14,000 last measured years ago. That's an enormous loss and far greater than any other community in the city. So we have these towers, we have no affordable housing being built, and we have the loss through demolition of the buildings with affordable units. The city has failed to recognize this as an issue. And I say this with confidence because I was chair of the community board until 2020 and met with city planning, who had no interest in helping us put height limits on these buildings, thinking that height limits are a frustration of a purpose. But the problem is they're a frustration of trying to get affordable housing, because developers don't have to come to us and ask for more height or more bulk or more anything. And so we don't get to say, if you want more height or more bulk, please put in affordable units. We want to see 30%. 25%, some percent. So we get nothing here, and the city has not been helpful in any single way. I'm sure Elizabeth Rose and Adam Wald could address with the rezoning that's been asked for other blocks in the district, and the failure of even those extremely well-resourced developers to put in affordable units. There's also the loss of units, and this was some time ago, from Mitchell-Lama housing. All of those buildings on 3rd Avenue in the 90s up to 2nd were affordable housing, and now they are all market rate and condos. So there seems to be some disconnect, and I feel like the residents and the community board have been blamed for all of this, when in fact we have been asking for affordable housing for years, since way before I was chair of the community board, and have not been able to get any, because really, why would Extell want to put in 20, 25, 28% affordable housing when it could put in, it's not required to, and it could put in the same amount of housing at market rate or luxury rate for investors. So these buildings for foreign investors add nothing to the community. We don't get affordable housing. And incidentally, because sometimes there's blinders for what a purpose is, we also lose the mom and pop businesses, which have been affordable people. And now they're replaced by $8 cappuccinos and $20 sandwiches, which are not affordable for a lot of people in this district. So there is definitely a domino effect of what happens when and every day it seems that there are more and more of these walk-ups coming down to put up towers without any regard for the welfare or the well-being of the community. And it's really frustrating because the city has just refused to engage with us on trying to do anything to preserve the affordable units and the mom and pop businesses that go with them. So I appreciate the presentation that you did, but I'm not really sure what we're supposed to do about this, because we have no say in anything. And even when we object to, and actually there's a school that has bought a building and emptied it of affordable housing. They moved some people around the neighborhood. They were trying to evict the other affordable tenants in order to be able to expand the school or move the kindergartners or something. There's just something really wrong, and it's not our fault. We try really hard to get the city to engage, to get developers to engage, to get some kind of restriction. So I'm not sure that there's a question here, except how could we work with the city to stop, because one of the things you mentioned is the preservation of the housing that exists, but that's not happening, and there's been no force from the city to try and get that. And when you talk about giving city land to affordable housing, there's a parcel of land down by the meatpacking district that the city wants, I don't know if this is still going on, to give for a 60-story, mostly market rate building on city-owned land, which belongs to the taxpayers and the people living in the city. So I don't even understand how anything is consistent here. So I'll stop there because there are a lot of people have their hands raised, and thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I would like to point out that the community board had a proposal for 2 special zoning districts on 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and York Avenues, which had no height limits. We never got anywhere with them. We worked very hard. The proposal included saving the low-rise tenement buildings with their affordable housing, a height limit of 210 feet, which is common all over every wide street and avenue in the Upper East Side. It protects the scale and character of the neighborhood, and supporting affordable mom and pop stores. We've been turned down. They wouldn't, the Department of City Planning wouldn't even work on certifying our application. And now it's probably out of date because every affordable housing and tenement that we wanted to save is down now, replaced with a huge tower. Anyhow, okay.
I'm happy to try and respond. There's a lot there, so I'm happy to sort of walk through that. And I might have Sarit pitch in as well. And just want to say, we have data definitely that shows that there's been a loss of overall housing units on the Upper East Side because of owners combining units and making either single residents or reconfiguring them in different ways. I will say that the city is looking into ways to build affordable housing in all parts of the city through City of Yes, including parts of the city where low-cost housing is most scarce, which are known as limited affordability areas, which would include the Upper East Side. And I'll let Sarit speak more about sort of what we're doing there. But I'll also point out that In HPD's Where We Live report, which was recently released, there was a strategy that was specifically focused on increasing housing opportunities, particularly for low-income New Yorkers in amenity-rich areas like the Upper East Side. And we will continue to look at ways to bring more affordable housing to the district. And it's really nice to hear that you also all want more affordable housing. Because I know we also talked about the mismatch between population growth and housing being built here. I will point out a project recently that you all approved, the East 94th Street rezoning. That is one of the best ways of getting additional affordable units. I know that included a percentage of the units being MIH. And I'll also point out the UAP updates through City of Yes that now provide the opportunity for landlords to get a little bit more height on buildings in exchange for affordable units. And that's a really powerful tool to create permanently affordable housing in the district. And I'll pass it to Sarit to kind of fill in the gaps on that too.
Sure. Thanks, Joy. And, thanks everyone for, sharing your concerns and your desire for more affordable housing in this community. I think one of the tools that Joy mentioned is what we call limited affordability areas. So according to kind of our current work, the Upper East Side is considered a limited affordability area, means that it has a small amount of low-cost housing today. And we're kind of a new approach for us is that we are in limited affordability areas, prioritizing tax credits for affordable housing in these communities. So this has already been the case for the last 2 years, and you'll see kind of in this year's new document that kind of guides how we approach tax credits called the Qualified Action Plan, Allocation Plan, that this is one of the communities that is prioritized. So, I think that just really underscores that the city sees that this is a community among others in, kind of like Eastern Queens and parts of Staten Island where there is not enough affordable housing and that developers are not building affordable housing there. And we're trying to create a way to, further incentivize that. And that's just the start. It's not a panacea, but that's, we are actively thinking about different strategies and tools for that. So I did want to highlight that. And, I also wanted to just highlight that, on preservation, there were some, flags around preservation tools not being strong enough. That's something that we're always looking to strengthen. And one of our key tools around preservation, it was noted that there's been a loss of units. I do want to highlight that for buildings that are 100% affordable, that are subsidized by the city, we have a tool built into these programs or built into these regulatory agreements called balloon mortgages that actually incentivize owners of these developments to remain affordable. So they actually lose a significant amount of money. That's why it's called a balloon mortgage. The amount of money that they would need to pay back if they leave affordability and do not kind of preserve or refinance with the city is quite significant and a huge disincentive. And so this is something that's been built in, and we have a number of other safeguards that we kind of work on to try and maintain buildings that are financed by the city as affordable housing. So just wanted to point that out.
Thank you very much. Elizabeth Rose?
Thank you, Elizabeth. So I have one particular question about the presentation that you all gave, and then I'd like to follow up on Zainab's question about certificates. I have some more specific information that I think might help clarify what it was she was looking for. So on the presentation itself, if you could potentially put it up on the screen, you showed a chart where you identified what the CB8 median income or average income was. I'm not sure if it was average or median that you showed, and compared that to the average price of a certain size rental apartment, and therefore what percentage of rent does a CB8 person pay. And in particular, my question there was, it looks like there was a little bit of what I would call an apples to oranges comparison, because I think you were comparing the average income for a CB8 resident at $152,000 with the average rental cost in all of New York City. And I'm inferring that you're sort of taking that 2,750 divided by 12.7 and getting to the chart on the right-hand side where you're saying that the average CB8 family is paying less than 30% on their rent. Am I reading this chart accurately?
That's correct. I'm going to jump in here.
Okay.
So
That's
this
just a
is
little bit of apples and oranges. If you're going to show the average CD8 family, I would, in our community district, I would think you would then also want to show the average 2-bedroom rent available apartment in CD8.
That's really good feedback. Yeah. And this is a presentation that we use pretty much citywide. And to be honest, most of the districts that we present to are below the citywide median average. So
Yeah.
we kind of wanted to
Just
show.
if you're going to
Yeah,
customize,
absolutely.
which I really appreciate, I actually
Yeah.
think customizing to your audience is a really positive thing, but you need to follow it through consistently.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
But we just wanted to highlight, I mean, regardless, it's still quite expensive for an average 2-bedroom. Obviously, we can assume that it's much higher in CB8 as well.
Yes.
And even though, and Melanie mentioned this, even though the median income is quite high, the next slide does talk about how high the rent burden is.
Yeah.
Even though we see higher incomes here. So clearly it's not telling the full picture.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So thank you for that. I just wanted to flag that before I went on. So I wanted to thank Zeynep for raising this question about the certificate program. And this is now specifically pertinent in particular for because of City of Yes and the universal affordability preference, which we as a community board supported. We voted on every single proposal within City of Yes, and did not approve some, but we were very strongly in favor of applying UAP to our district as well. And prior to this point, UAP was not available within CD8. And so we think it's a very positive step forward. That said, we have in fact seen the first building that appears to be attempting to use the UAP provision in City of Yes, but it's not having the impact that we expected. So here's a little bit more detail. The building is 985 Fifth Avenue. As Zeynep mentioned, it is a building that was previously a rental building, and we believe rent stabilized building, that is going to be demolished. And the proposal will build a building with half as many apartments, and they will be condominiums. So that's just the background. That developer has most recently, because of the City of Yes passing, come back with a larger building that takes advantage of, we think, the UAP program to increase the square footage in the building. However, there will be no on-site affordable units built. Instead, and we have obtained a copy of it, the developer appears to have purchased a certificate. And the certificate that I'm looking at says it is the City of New York, Department of Housing Preservation and Development, Office of Development, Inclusionary Housing Program. It is a completion notice, certificate of floor area compensation transfer. And it identifies that the owner, 985 Land Holding, has purchased some sort of certificates of affordable housing floor area, which is the benefit transfer or is a building in our community district, the James Lennox Houses Inc. at 49 East 73rd Street, And so there has clearly been a payment, a certificate, and we have no visibility really into how this certificate transfer process works. What have they bought? Who's selling? How is it that this building under City of Yes is able to increase its square footage on site without, in fact, any on-site affordable housing? What is the rate that is being paid? It appears we do know that when in the case of MIH inclusionary housing, there is a program there where a development under 25,000 square feet can pay into funds rather than provide on-site housing. We know what the rate they are supposed to pay per square footage is. It appears that 985 Fifth Avenue has paid about half, maybe, of the rate that MIH off-site programs would require per square foot. And so we're trying to understand how this works, who's making the market between, the buyer and the seller. How were these rates established? How was the $7 million determined to be appropriate for 985 to add over 11,000 square feet and have off-site affordable housing when there should not have been a provision for off-site affordable housing in this district based on how we understood City of Yes was intended?
Thank you. Yeah, I will try to answer that. I'm also probably going to ask Suri to step in. I'm not a UAP expert, so I just want to say that up front, and I'm happy to look more into this site in particular. But I will say, it seems like there are certain provisions as part of UIP that do allow for this sort of offsite transfer of affordable housing units, for lack of a better word. Typically, this was also something that the voluntary inclusionary housing program also allowed. And typically only in R10 districts, very specific zoning districts would allow that. And there's usually a half-mile radius where these affordable units must be relocated or developed. So relocated is not quite the right word, developed. But I can look a lot more into that. And I don't know if Sarit wants to add anything else.
No, I think you covered it, Joy. I think we can follow up with our team who handles these applications to get you more project-specific information, but that's kind of really all there is to know at this point about the program overall. Like, it's, as Joy said, limited to R10 districts, formerly inclusionary housing areas. And that happens to be in your district. So we'll get you more information on the site.
Yeah, happy to look
we
into
would
it.
definitely like a lot more information, because look, if they're allowed to build offsite, or if they're allowed to simply pay into an offsite fund, we want to make sure they're paying appropriate rates, not getting an enormous benefit on, in prime real estate for not a lot of money. And we also, ultimately, our goal is to ensure that there is affordable housing that is also built in our community. And the more outs there are, if you will, the less likely that is to actually occur. So thank you. We appreciate the follow-up. And one final question. When you talked about limited affordability areas and that one of the benefits was that you would prioritize tax credits, and that this district has been identified as an area for which these tax credits are applicable. Has anybody applied from CD8?
Great question. I don't have the data about how these so I can get you that information. This is very new, just in the last couple of years, and this is just for what we call discretionary low-income housing tax credits, are 9%. So it's the type of thing where we get like 15 projects a year that apply in the first place. So pretty limited overall. But we can follow up on that. Although Miranda has looked at recent data. I don't know if Miranda.
I think, yeah, I was looking at this today. I don't believe so, is the answer.
Okay, so it was
From
not
last year.
not
Yeah.
on that brand side yet, but yeah, I think this is like new. It's a pilot. It's growing. We're thinking about ways to, further these overall types of strategies.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Sharon?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth, and also Elizabeth, Anthony, and Ed. Really appreciate this presentation, and thank you to HPD for being here this evening. I want to emphasize, I have a couple of questions, and I just want to emphasize that I love the work that HPD is doing. So these are not gotcha questions. They're more to facilitate a greater understanding of the affordability housing crisis in New York City. So my first, and I have three. The first question is, I did not see that much information regarding area median income when as a requirement for applying for these affordable units. It's the feedback that I have received is that, so for example, I'm referring to the earlier discussion in the presentation, specifically, for example, that there are more affordable housing units in areas that already have affordable housing units, and those and in some of those areas, and I think I have a pretty good idea of which areas, but in some of those areas, the feedback that I have heard is that the area median income requirement for those affordable units, and there are air quotes around that, is pretty high. The hurdle to jump over is extremely difficult for people of limited means. And I'm interested in hearing from HPD, how does requiring the area median income, which my understanding, encompasses New York, New Jersey, and Westchester. How does that factor in as one of the ways that the affordable housing crisis is is so challenging to overcome. So that would be my first question. My second question is Housing Connect. The feedback that I've also received regarding Housing Connect is that it's extremely challenging and very difficult to navigate that. And lastly, with respect to my last question, is with respect to single room occupancy buildings or units. If you go on the HPD website, it is almost impossible to access a list. So, for example, when someone is challenged in terms of housing, where might they go, for example, on the HPD website, because it's not in Housing Connect. If they're interested in single room occupancy units, which I was surprised to learn not too long ago, that they that they in fact still exist, and there's many in all 5 boroughs. So those are my 3 questions with the AMI and how that is a factor. Possibly, I would appreciate your feedback on this. Where is a factor in the housing affordability crisis, uh, navigating the New York City Connect housing website, and also how people would access and learn about single room occupancy units, for example, through HPD.
Thank you. I'm going to try and kick it off and then can pass to other folks too. Thank you for the questions. Thank you for the feedback as well. I'm going to ask you for a little bit more context on some of this, but for your question about AMIs being too high, AMIs are set by the federal government, by HUD. That being said, we do take this feedback that we hear. If you're hearing from folks that AMIs are still too high, and folks feel like they don't qualify for units, this is good feedback to know. I will say we do try to build housing at different levels of affordability throughout the city. And a lot of folks at the lowest incomes can also use their housing vouchers to pay their rent in our affordable units, as they would be able to in other buildings as well. And I don't know if I have much more to say on that, but that is really good feedback, and I appreciate that. With the Housing Connect piece, you mentioned that it's extremely challenging to navigate. We're always trying to find ways to kind of streamline the process, make the website a lot more easy to use. Could you talk a little bit more about what you mean by challenging?
I cannot.
Okay. So you haven't used it yourself?
No, I haven't used it
Okay.
myself, but I have received feedback that from other people, and actually from different areas of the city, in fact, who have attempted to use it and has found that it's difficult to navigate.
Okay. I know we've cut requirements quite a bit in terms of how much paperwork you need to submit. We no longer require credit checks anymore. But if folks are having a really hard time with Housing Connect, we do have our Housing Ambassadors program, which can sort of help different folks in different areas, apply on Housing Connect and help them navigate the website a little bit. And I can share a little bit more info about that after the meeting. For 8 SROs, that's a really interesting question. Those are really older buildings. I don't think that we offer SROs at all. So
yeah, you do. I'm very clear about.
Okay.
Yeah, you do.
Do you have an example of a building on Housing Connect that you've seen?
No, it wasn't on Housing Connect.
Okay.
I believe that, no, it wasn't on Housing Connect, but I understand from another housing forum that there are SROs.
I know SROs exist in the city, but I don't know if we administer those. And Rebel, I don't know if you have more information about that.
Yeah, if I may. So SROs they exist. They're part of the city's old housing stocks, but it's been a while since there's been authorization to build new ones. In fact, you may have seen in the news recently, there was a proposal from the Adams administration about changing that. There's a good reason why you didn't see them in Housing Connect, for example, because Housing Connect tends to be about newer buildings that are coming into the stocks. And since SROs are not allowed right now to be built, that's why you don't see them. But they do exist. They're left over from old stocks, and just like every other apartment that you look for, they come through brokers and landlords and advertisements. and that's just the only way to get them. Another thing I would say, however, is if you do have people that have vouchers, you can reach out to the Public Engagement Unit's home support team. We'll drop their website on the chat. Well, actually, are we allowed to put it on the chat?
We can send it an email
Okay,
as well.
great.
Yeah.
We can send that to you, and they do assist folks with vouchers in finding apartments, and particularly if they are particularly in the shelter.
If you send it to the Community Board 8 Zoom account, I'm happy to distribute it to everyone. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you.
So there's no central list of SROs?
Not in the way, not in a marketing sense. We may have overall idea of where they are, but we don't know if they're vacant. We don't know if they're available for rental, like any of those categories in terms of being available to be used by the public.
Thank you very much for answering my questions.
Welcome.
Thank you. And now we have Michelle Birnbaum.
Yeah, thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you, everybody. Let me first say, make one comment. It isn't really true that developers have nothing to offer the community if they build luxury housing. We need luxury housing in the community. That is a lot of your tax base. So in order to get affordable housing, I'm not necessarily advocating for eliminating luxury housing. I think there's a way to get both, and I think there's a balance to be had. And one of the big issues is we have to find a way to make building affordable housing profitable. You'll never get affordable housing if it always represents a loss to the developer. So there's got to be a way to make it profitable. Now, we saw that on the 91st Street property, the Friedland property. When we asked him for affordable housing, he very carefully calculated what percentage he could make of affordable housing in that building, which will have luxury housing and still come out profitable. That's really what you need to do. So we have to keep finding ways to make that possible. One of the ways that and Marco brought this to my attention, and he and I have been advocating for it, are our zoning, making like the avenues, York 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, where the community board has a resolution and also had a presentation down at city planning, but they didn't want to hear us because they don't want any height restrictions, because they are under the mistaken idea that height equals affordable housing. And we have pointed out 1,000 times that clearly that's not true. We've got one building going up now in Hudson Yards at 710 feet. There's not going to be any affordable housing in there. All of the buildings that are built up here, as Alita pointed out, we have density, we don't have affordable housing. Why they can't get that concept that they need other carrots, I don't know. We've got a 500-foot building, 450-foot building. They're big, but they have no affordable housing. And to boot, in order to build them, the tenements were torn down, which were yielding affordable housing. So where this logic is coming from, I'm really not sure. But I can say that height does not equal affordable housing. If you had zoning like the R10A, you have a 210 height requirement, which is very livable. It's what Park has, Fifth has, Madison has, and it's in context with the neighborhood. It's a livable height, and you're allowed to add a 20% bonus to those buildings. Of the 210, you can add 20% to those heights if you make them affordable housing. And that to me would be very appealing to a developer. And I think the developer on the southwest corner of 86th and First utilize that. The other thing that we keep talking around, and there's got to be a way to find it out, is about the warehoused apartments. Everybody agrees that there are many warehoused apartments, that they are empty. And everybody agrees that those number in the thousands. And nobody can seem to find a way to bring them to market in any way. But it seems to me that that's where the discussion has to go, is how do you make it affordable for developers to build affordable housing? How do you do it in the zoning? Have a recognition that height does not equal affordability. It doesn't work. There's a million examples of it all over the city. And the other thing is how to make it, how to use, what carrots to use to get those that are warehousing all these. There are thousands of them. Well, we're worried about how to build others. How do you bring them to market? What do you have to do? I'm not a housing expert. I'm not a developing expert. I'm not a zoning expert. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but there has to be something that would be so appealing to these people, that these landlords that own these, that they would be excited to take advantage of, because they're getting nothing except maybe writing off some kind of tax losses. They're getting nothing from the apartments that they have. So that to me is the direction I would go with. And I wouldn't necessarily attack the high-end developers in order to achieve that. I think we can achieve that with benefits that they would yield on their own. Anyway, thanks for listening.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to respond to that. And I really appreciate, again, this desire for more affordable housing and sort of thinking through different solutions for how to make that possible. I will say, MIH, there are certain tools that we have to create permanently affordable housing that do sort of require additional density. So when a developer rezones a site, they're required to provide MIH units in some cases. In other cases, if they're trying to build additional density, they have the option through UIP to add additional affordable units. So there sort of is a trade-off with density and affordability that's inherent in making these things pencil out, for better or worse. And you've kind of mentioned that.
Not without as of right development. Private as of right development.
Sure. And I think that these affordable tools really kick in as a result of additional density. So downzoning different sites wouldn't really produce additional housing units, wouldn't also kick in the requirements to build affordable housing. And that's a tool that we really rely on pretty heavily.
And R10A would, and nobody would consider it. We've made presentations to every elected official and also the City Planning Commission, and nobody was interested. And R10A would do that. You'd have a 210 height limit, and then for an extra, for 20% in height, you have to build affordable housing. And nobody was interested in it.
Yeah, we haven't been a part of those conversations, so we just don't know all the back and forth with, city planning, but helpful to hear about this. I think, we just wanted to give a little bit of our understanding of, where MIH ultimately gets mapped, really areas where the density increases, at least 25%. So it's not viewed as a takings, but we can take this back to city planning and also try and better understand from them what those prior conversations have been.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now a member of the public has got his paw up. So could you unmute Lo Vandervoog?
Yes. This is Lo Vandervalk speaking on behalf of Carnegie Hill Neighbors. Just one question referring to Michelle Birnbaum's earlier comments. She mentioned a specific case where the balance between affordable and luxury was trying to be achieved. And she mentioned it at 91st Street housing by the Friedland Properties. I'm not clear what that is. Could she be more specific? Is it possibly 94th Street? Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. My mistake, 94th.
Thank you.
Is that it, Lo? Yeah. Okey doke. And we want to get every idea and question in, so I would ask us all to be a little more succinct as we go along. Marco, you have not been heard yet.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you for the presentation. You have to keep in mind one thing, only one thing. We are not against city planning. We are not against HPD. What we are right here is to have a conversation to understand our needs and how become a partner in the process in our community. I think that is our major goal. Probably I will criticize strong, but my goal is basically, or our goal is to find a partnership because we live in this community. We understand our community. We read our community. We know the history of our community. So let's go start first with the development of Fifth Avenue. I think I'm going to continue the discussion of Elizabeth. And the developer came to us and they said, yes, we want 2 FAR more and 20 feet high because they have a high limit, because that is extremely important to negotiate with the developers. Otherwise, we don't have this opportunity. No high limit, we don't have no opportunity to negotiate properly with the developers. The developers are very smart, are very well coached, but excellent professionals, while the community and what the city not. So in that case, 11,000 square feet, $7 million. He paid at the rate of $636 per square feet. So in the study of NYU, they said the cost of the development of low-income housing in the Bronx is 636 approximately, almost the same. How are you gonna make this assessment when in the Upper East Side, we are the most densest community board in the country? More than 120,000 people live in our community per square mile. It's extremely dense. So we has been at the top of producing housing, or we house more than anybody else. So I don't know what kind of housing we produce, but I know very well right now is the issue of the $636 in our community, comparing with NYU cost of the land is $32. In the Upper East Side, because we are the densest, we are not having a vacant lot. We are not. So therefore, the cost of the land approximately is $350 per square feet. That is in the area of First Avenue. I give you the number precisely because it changed according with the location. The more to the western side is probably more expensive. So the developer is having right there a big deal. So why you take just only that amount of money? 7 million, it looks a lot, but in reality it's not. So we are negotiated in the wrong direction with the developers. The developers, they want to make money, and that is fine. I don't blame them. Where we blame is us, that we are not ready to negotiate with them in a fair way, in benefit for them and in benefit of the community. And that's the only thing you expect is probably to get money from the taxpayers and throw inside of the city. And I think that is wrong. It's good to have that money, but it's wrong that to negotiate very bad with the developers. The developers, they take more advantage than anybody else. So this is the first concept that you have to understand, that we understand how the developers in our community works. They don't care about public housing, public money, because they are loaded with money and they can do whatever they want. Example of that is I have a study of the height of the buildings on exactly in the avenues that Elizabeth Ashby mentioned. And I can tell you that in those developments, before this boom of super tall buildings, we have a very minor representation of housing. And I'm going to give you right now the percentage. The discretionary actions usually is in the hospital in our community is 7.3%. The private developments represent 10%, 11%. The POPs, which basically was a trade to provide open space, because we lack open space in our community, because we are the densest and we don't have vacant lots to have parks. So that represents 38%. And the HPD, those developments prior to this wave, represent a 43%. Of those developments, most of them probably they are already disadvantaged. The idea to create affordable housing because of the concept, the creation of affordable housing. But we have super tall buildings, and that was the direction. Now there is a wave that the developer is coming because of the negligence of city planning and all the agencies to do something to control, to have a power to negotiate between the developer and the community. The developers taking advantage of everything. They develop.
Thank you.
I did the development on the area of the Upper East Side, and they represent the density of so that means the number of apartments is just only they build 54% or the minimum is 24%. You want to produce affordable housing, the only way is you have to control the height of the buildings. And the best example is definitely is York and 86th Street. This developer, they develop at 88% of density, and he produced affordable housing. He demolished 31 affordable dwelling units and built 31 more. So I think this is a good trade that the developers, they can do that. This is because most of the developers, they say, no, I don't want to do that, the affordable housing. Yes, these developers, they did, and they did with R108, which is quality of housing. We are in the direction not only to produce housing, but produce quality of housing. You know very well what is 10.8. I don't need to explain to you what it means. So that is the direction. And finally, I'm gonna mention that I'm gonna finish, Elizabeth. Our community, we are right now in the process of in the section the affluent sections western of Lexington Avenue, there is a pattern. There is a reduction of housing. All of them, I think Alida mentioned that part. So while the other section is still the highest density. So if you put numbers in general for the community board, I think it's erroneous to the understanding of our housing problems that we have right now. I think I already take too much, but I will probably have a chance more to talk ahead. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Marco.
Thank you, Marco.
Yeah, and I'm happy. I'm hearing a lot of frustration and desire for more affordable housing. Like Sarit said, we will take all of this conversation around the rezoning back to our colleagues at DCP, since we haven't been part of those conversations, and sort of get more information from them about this. But we are very seriously thinking about where to build more housing in the city, especially in areas like the Upper East Side, where we know that there's been a huge mismatch between the population growth, housing produced. We know that there's pretty high rent burden in your district as well. So we are listening and really appreciate that feedback.
Thank you very much. Alida,
I'll be brief, Elizabeth, and thank you for allowing me to speak again. I just don't understand, I guess, the mismatch between housing and population growth when there are so many towers that are going up, and not all of them have fewer units than what they tear down. Also, where exactly would you put in more affordable housing? How could the city do this on its own? Clearly, the private public partnership of having developers put in affordable housing doesn't work. But what could the city do? We have less green space than any other area in the city. The schools have playgrounds, but they need the playgrounds. Otherwise, they take the streets, which is inadequate. We have a lot of historic districts, which I know a lot of people want to get rid of, thinking that they foil the development or the construction of affordable housing, but that would be horrible for this community in a lot of ways. So clearly there are a lot of issues here and a lot of problems. I would only ask that when you talk to city planning, because when I met with them, with Elizabeth Ashby and some people who are and were on the board, it was under the de Blasio administration. So they may no longer be there, but that you bring community members who understand what the housing is like here, because the city is vast and neighborhoods differ in income and in housing and in types of housing and amount of housing. And so to have these conversations without anyone from the community participating would just feel like it's a table that is not fully set and fully populated. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have a few words, Michelle?
Yeah, thanks, Elizabeth. I just want to say one thing, and I don't know if this got cut in the final cut of the City of Yes, but part of that housing proposal was to save space and to be able to have smaller apartments. They were proposing having apartments with shared bathrooms and or shared kitchens. I want to make it very, very clear from my point of view, I think that's a terrible idea. And when we're talking about affordable housing, we should not have to lower standards. That's going back to the Lower East Side at the turn of the 20th century. You know, bathtubs in the kitchen, bathrooms in the hallway. That is not the answer. The answer is probably in all the warehoused apartments, if we can pry them loose. But you need to have carrots in order to do that. There has to be a reason for a property owner to give those up. But I want to make it very clear that, in my opinion, I don't think that's the way to go. That is not an answer to lower everybody's standard of living. That's not the answer. That's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Thanks, Michelle.
Elizabeth, can I ask a quick question of Joy, everyone? The last speaker, we were discussing about not the disparity, but I guess the two ends of the bell curve, if you will, in our district. I was just going to ask in general, do you all know just off the top of your head of the 59 community districts in the city? I've posited this a couple of times, but I've never done the research to know for sure. Are we one of, or are we the highest in terms of, meaning when you go to the top end, I mean, we're at the top end. I mean, if you read the real estate report, I mean, it is not unusual, to quote Tom Jones, for us to be in the top 5 every month or every week in terms of the highest price for a townhouse or an apartment in our community district 8. Meanwhile, same time, same district, same channel, same bad channel, we have homes, Isaac's Towers in community district 8 as well. So are there other districts, I guess is what I'm asking, that have that same going to those extremes as well? Or are we one of the few districts, speaking to the issue before about tailoring the segment, I think it was Elizabeth Rose, although the bar chart, I do think the bar column, I think captures the point in terms of the rent burden very nicely visually. But are there other districts like us? Going back to my question. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for that question. In terms of the wealth disparity, I don't know off the top of my head where CB8 stacks up. I would imagine that other districts see that where there's NYCHA developments in what we consider to be higher amenity areas. I can look into that, but I guess is there more to that question about something you would want to find out or just
well,
know
no.
more about?
Well, I was just curious because it seems to me that there might be some for budding graduate students out there, might be a little paper on regression analysis because to the topic next up on the agenda, loss of affordable units, as George James pointed out, and as you well know, the Upper West Side, Community District 7 and Community District 8 lost collectively 68% of all the rent regulated apartments from 2007 to 2020. And it's not, again, unusual, at least from this humble reporters or community board members' vantage point, that the dirt is referred to it underneath the buildings or the deck, if you will, on Park Avenue, is on some very expensive land. And that's all I'm asking. And your point is well taken, but just for those out there, I mean, not every single community district in New York City, although we could be getting there. You look at Brooklyn or you drive through LIC, right? They seem to be catching up. I'm just asking. That's all.
Got it. Yeah, I can look a little bit more into that, but it is an interesting question and happy to follow up.
Okay, thanks.
Adam Wald, we haven't had you yet.
Well, I wanted to answer one of the earlier questions and also Elizabeth Rose's questions. So what's interesting about 985 Fifth is that the bonus that's being added to it is not as a result necessarily of a change in program. It's that on on Fifth Avenue, the density was previously capped at 10, and there was, even though UAP is available for an R10 district, it was not able to take advantage of it. This text of City of Yes essentially overwrote Madison Avenue and the Fifth Avenue districts, so you can bonus from a 10 to a 12. The UAP is a private negotiation between the seller. So in this instance, FIPS is created 100% affordable housing building through, they preserved 100% affordable housing building, and they privately negotiated with the developer of 985 to sell the inclusionary housing certificates. Inclusionary housing has now been replaced by UAP, but the same thing still exists. Now, what HPD should do and what the city should do is not take away the UAP offsite bonus for preservation projects. It was previously 2-to-1 FAR, and with UAP, it's now back down to 1-to-1. So the vested sites, like 49 East 73rd Street, James Lennox House, is still able to generate at a 2-to-1 ratio because they were vested prior to December 5th, 2024. But other preservation projects in the district will only generate at a 1-to-1, which makes it difficult to incentivize preservation of affordable housing. So what the city should do is raise that ratio back up to the original 2.0 FAR, which is where it stood prior to December 5th, 2024. So I look forward to Sarit and her team implementing that going forward.
Thank you. Elizabeth Rose, you wanted to
Thank you. Yeah, no,
have
Adam,
2 cents?
it's really interesting to hear the notion that it was an entirely private transaction between 985 Fifth and Lennox, the Affordable Housing Organization. That also should not happen. So there should not be a unregulated market for FAR. That's effectively what you're describing. What you're saying is you can buy the FAR that is allowed by City of Yes and fulfill that additional FAR affordable housing requirement entirely through a private market negotiation. That's absurd. I think it is. I mean, if there is a program that says, you know, if you're not going to put your affordable housing in the location where you are building private condominium, whatever it is you're building. And we know that the city has established a rate for enabling offsite development. There is no way that a developer should be able to buy that additional FAR at lower than a city established rate. That doesn't benefit the city, not in the way it should. In fact, the city might be better off if they paid the additional money into the fund. The fund could then have had a below market rate transaction with the affordable housing developer and then still had money left over in order to enable additional affordable housing. But the notion that they could totally buy out of affordable housing completely with a private market transaction below the city established rate, that just strikes me as just bad for the city. My 2 cents, my soapbox. Thank you.
Thank you, Elizabeth. Do you have another 2 cents, Sharon?
Thank you, Elizabeth. First of all, Ed, I can't believe you referenced Tom Jones saying you're dating yourself up there.
I saw a movie on Dean Martin the other day. That's what got me thinking about it.
And the same bad time, same bad channel. I do have
Hey,
a question.
exactly.
Everybody.
Dean Martin, the Dean Martin Hour, the Dean Martin Show.
I just wanted to ask HPD, and then I reserve to have a follow-up question, follow-up comment. Actually, I want to ask HPD something that may not be necessarily obvious, but what constitutes an amenity-rich community? I've heard that term a couple of times and even referenced to the Upper East Side specifically. So I was hoping that you could answer that question for us, and I may have a follow-up comment.
I think Street needs to be unmuted, but
Great. Yeah, so great question. I think, you know, when we refer to an amenity-rich area, it's often referring to, you know, a community that has, you know, good transit access, good access to, you know, open space, all the necessary services, hospitals, potentially other, you know, arts and recreation, really kind of the full gamut of things that you might need to have a, you know, a high quality neighborhood. I think when we refer to neighborhoods like the Upper East Side, you know, I think the Upper East Side is a great example of an amenity rich area. But I think that like more common or kind of maybe a better way to think about it when we're thinking just in terms of like our narrow lane of affordable housing is what we referred to earlier, which is like the limited affordability area. So when we're thinking about how to compare different neighborhoods in terms of, when we're thinking about how to compare neighborhoods, we try to stay pretty focused and think about kind of where new affordable housing should go. Really try to stay focused on just how much affordable housing there is today. If there is not a lot of it, that then becomes a priority of a neighborhood where we want to focus on that. So
yeah, certainly. And I just wanted to address the open space and as well as the transportation options. I've always found that discussion in relation to the Upper East Side very, very interesting. Specifically, for example, people would point to the Second Avenue subway I think that there's, you know, the HPD team, you did not experience a 4, 5, and 6 prior to the Second Avenue subway, and which was really built to alleviate the tremendous overcrowding on the 4, 5, and 6. And of course, the Upper West Side has the 1, 2, and 3, and the A, B, C, and D. So we don't have as much transit options as the Upper West Side or the West Side of Manhattan, for example. And also, certainly, the Upper East Side has one of the lowest open space ratios in the city. So these types of perceptions, I think, continue to plague the Upper East Side in terms of its needs overall. I just wanted to point that out, and thank you so much for answering my question
And I'll just
and
say,
engaging in this conversation.
Sure. And I'll just say, I think that's like a totally fair term. And I think, or a fair point. And I think that also when we talk about amenity rich, I think your point, which is that a lot of it is actually about perception, which is why I think we're increasingly trying to just stick to some things that are like totally value neutral, like where there is and is not affordable housing. And, you know, when we think about how to make all neighborhoods great places to live, we think about, you know, building and kind of bringing more amenities there. And so that's, you know, something that we really think about is thinking about neighborhoods holistically. So appreciate you flagging that. And that's, you know, something we're always thinking about. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. I want to be mindful of my team's time, but we're happy to take one more question. This has been a really, really interesting conversation already, and I'm happy to send a lot of resources your way along with the deck that we presented tonight. But yeah, happy to take Marco's question.
Thanks.
Do you have another
Yeah, Elizabeth, I'm
very
sorry.
brief comment?
Yeah,
about-
very brief. I'm going to tell you, our community has the largest deficit in open spaces. In time of COVID, we didn't have enough space for that. Even though the most of the population, they left the city. The esplanade was not enough. The parks that we have was not enough. What we did is we closed the East End Avenue because we don't have open spaces. We didn't have even the pubs was enough for our community. We had the largest deficit in that part. So our community probably I will be against many fellow community members is our priority should be more open space rather to build housing, because that is the part that we need. We need an area that COVID give the lessons to us. We need that space. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. And I just want to give my co-chairs a chance. Anthony, we haven't heard from you, and I'm
good. Elizabeth Rose pointed out my big concern about the average 2-bedroom apartment rent. I don't think we've seen a $2,700 a month 2-bedroom apartment on the Upper East Side for 30 years, if then. So anyway, so that was my and the question I would ask, and I don't know whether you guys know the answer offhand, is do you somewhere have statistics that show, two things. Do you have statistics that show average rents by apartment size with air quotes around them for the different community districts or even for the different boroughs? That was the first question.
I'm wondering if we have that through the Eddy, but I can take a look. I don't know. Oh, go ahead, Serene.
It would be interesting to be able to compare, because one of the issues in our district that would make it even harder for private developers to build affordable housing is the return on market rate housing is so much higher than what could it in fact be supported. So that was the first question. Then the second question is, does HPD, or if not HPD, does another agency within the city have any way of actually knowing how many apartments are vacant?
Yes, and I can actually answer that question. And I'll let Sarit take your question about rent. So we do, I think you all are familiar with the 2023 New York City Housing and Vacancy Survey. We're gearing up for the next one. This is a survey that HPD does every 3 years. And it showed that 6% of housing units citywide were considered not available for rent or sale for a variety of reasons. And I want to, before I get into that, really emphasize what Miranda said earlier, that the city is experiencing our lowest housing vacancy rate since we did the survey in the 1960s of 1.41%. This rate is only slightly higher in Manhattan. It's 2.33. But these are vacancy rate considers units that are vacant but available for rent. So I want to clarify that distinction. The 6% that are considered not available, vacant but not available for rent or sale, are typically unavailable mainly because they're held for seasonal, recreational, or occasional use. This number is actually down from when we did the survey in 2021. But again, that percentage is only 6% of all of the housing units in the city. That being said, Manhattan certainly has the highest number of these seasonally held units. They're disproportionately located in Manhattan. 75% of these are located in the borough. And all boroughs have a significantly lower share compared to Manhattan. But I, again, really want to emphasize overall, like our vacancy rate is the lowest that we've ever seen it. And HPD is certainly thinking about different avenues of trying to get units back online. But this percentage of units makes up a very small percent of overall housing units.
Joy, if I could real quick before you all leave, if you haven't already, would someone put the deck that you had that you did tonight? Could you put it in the chat so Ian could grab it and then send it to us tonight? That would be great.
I'll follow up by email. That might be the better way to do it.
Okay. Thank you, Ian.
Either way. Thanks. It's funny, you were talking about the rent. I was thinking I just saw
but then just one other teeny question, because I'm not very good at this. It's 6%. 6%. How many apartments are there in the city? What are we talking about? Oh, it looks like we need an unmute.
Thank you. I accidentally muted myself. That number is, I can pull that from our housing vacancy survey, but there are many, but I'm happy to share that exact number with you.
Okay, that's fine. It's just, it's 6% of 1,000,000 is a lot more apartments than 6% of 1,000. It's trying to understand, or dwelling units. It's hard to understand the impact, because we're always talking about 200,000 more units of affordable housing. Well, what does that mean? Is that 5% of the total in the city, 2%? What does it mean in terms of actual numbers rather than percentages? Okay, so that was that.
So what was the third reason besides recreational and seasonal that they hold these apartments on that 6%? There were 3 reasons, right?
Yeah, I know one of the reasons was for maintenance, and I know you guys had brought that up the last time. And I don't remember what the third reason is, but I can also link the survey when I send everything over to Ian.
Great, thank you.
I think you just said seasonal reasons, recreational reasons, and maybe maintenance. That was it.
Okay, thank you very much. Well,
sorry, I'll just say that there were 3.7 million apartments in New York City.
Okay, great.
in
That's close enough.
Yeah, and I'll just mention that of those, the units in Manhattan that are being held seasonally are 43,435 units.
43,435.
Yeah, and this will all be in the housing vacancy survey, but
Okay.
I will share that.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. That's
Thank
great.
you very much.
Very helpful. That's very helpful.
Yeah. And I, as much as we probably could ask you questions at about 4 in the morning, I think that we really are very grateful to HPD for all your kindness, tolerance, answers, and as you know, as you could infer, this is a big problem to us. And I personally think that the city has got, they make citywide plans, and I think that they got to recognize different communities as they make overall all plans. It's been brought up that we're the densest in the country. And I think one unusual thing that I have them everywhere. I thought, yes, everybody should want and must. People who live west of Lexington on the Upper East Side. I've had people who had rent regulated, rent stabilized, affordable housing. They could afford the housing, who moved away because they could not afford to live in the area because the services and so. So I think that it's your information is something that we can use as we try to figure out suggestions to make that would suit us, because I think like every bit of the city, not only do we want to have and increase affordable housing, we want to protect the scale and the character and the livability of communities. That's just up, down, or whatever the financial district. So I think that you armed us well, and we thank you very much. And
Yeah, thank you guys.
I hope that we haven't kept you from your dinner for too long. And thank you. We're very, very grateful.
Yeah, we're always happy to come out. Thank you so much for all of your great questions and just your desire for more affordable housing. I think that's not something we hear everywhere in the city, especially in areas where we don't see a lot of it. So I think that's been really nice and refreshing, and we're always happy to answer your questions. But I will share the deck and some of the resources that we talked about tonight, along with the housing and vacancy survey, in an email to Ian, and then he can distribute that. And yeah, let us know if you have any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Okay, Ed, I think it's you.
Yes, so that it moves right into our second item for tonight, which segues nicely because it is a continued discussion, and Elizabeth Rose is queued up with fortuitous there as well, because we're going to continue last month's discussion regarding what we were just talking about, creating, preserving, buildings going down with 39 apartments and going back up with 34, or whatever, fill in the blank on the number, but one being larger and the other one being smaller and going in the wrong direction. So anyway, on the creating and preserving of affordable housing, I will just throw it open to who has their hand up first, and it looks like Elizabeth Rose is first. So please unmute Elizabeth.
Sorry, I'm first, but I'm lagging. On the vacant housing survey,
are they saying that the vacant rental apartments are being preserved for seasonal or recreational use?
Yes.
What is an appropriate seasonal use of a rental apartment?
That we did that they slipped away before we got that one out. That's a good question. We could throw that out there. I don't know. That's a very good
Yeah,
question.
if we could ask that in the follow-up.
Or what's a
Because they
recreational
seem to
use?
sort of say, yes, and what's a recreational use? Sort of like,
Are
it's,
you holding?
they were definitely trying to sort of downplay the unavailable apartments
I,
of
I will
this
say,
category. And I don't understand what it is.
I will tell you that it's probably not the reason, but I will say that mentally, the first thing that came to mind was when they said seasonally and recreationally, anyone who's walked by the Regency back when George Steinbrenner was alive, the Yankee flag would be flying out front when George Steinbrenner was in town and he had his suite. First thing I'm thinking is, it's baseball season or the US Open or who knows? I don't, that's probably not the reason, but
It probably, that sort of thing probably includes uh, the people who have apartments and houses all over the world. We have people who
But that wouldn't be a vacant apartment. That's an apartment that somebody is paying for.
yeah, right. But that was
the Needle
I
buildings
think
count.
occasional use probably falls in the same. They own it,
I
they pay
cannot
rent.
imagine that they're counting a pied-à-terre apartment as vacant.
Oh, no.
The number she said was 43,435, right?
In Manhattan.
In Manhattan. Thank you, Anthony. Yes, thank
Yeah.
you. And we're 75% of the total, which is 6%, right? Of those.
Mhm.
So,
Anyway.
sorry.
Sure.
That was
No, a valid point question. Michelle.
Yeah, with all due respect to everyone, we spent a few hours on item number 1. I think this topic, affordable housing, was an integral part of that conversation. And I think maybe we should adjourn if you want to entertain that motion. Second,
I see
anybody?
clapping and thumbs and Marco waving. I do not see any frowns. I will put it so my other co-chairs.
Oh,
So
having said that,
having said that, I don't want
we're
to
adjourned.
I don't want to jump the gun.
No, I just wanted to say something that might answer Elizabeth Rose's question if she's still on the call.
She is.
In the definitions of all of this are in the housing vacancy survey. Toward the back of it, there is an appendix that describe. I just got to it, but it's in there. And it describes what that means. Anyway, we can all read it and discuss next time.
Okay. Great. All right. So I guess that's a lot of waving. So everyone.
See everybody tomorrow night.
We'll see everyone tomorrow night, Thursday night. So thank you everyone for a very nice discussion. And thank you again to HPD for coming.
Thank you, everyone. I'll pass around materials from HPD when we get them. Good night.
Thanks, Ian.
Thank you, Ian.